Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to the extension lecture that we are going to uh, be doing today and tomorrow as well. And the topic today regarding this extension lecture is spending in charity. And this is a topic which is covered extensively in the Quran. And because of the fact that this is one of the very primary moral issues which the Quran has raised vis-a-vis basic morality, I will be taking a deeper look at how the Quran treats this topic. The fact that this is amongst basic morality is outlined by the Quran in that famous verse of Surah Nahl, in which it says that you have to spend on your kinsfolk. And of course, this is the starting point of your spending, in which people who might be deserving might be right under your nose. And instead of finding out people in the society first, it is our duty to look at our own family, our colleagues, our friends, and people that we know very closely. So there are basically 10 main verses of the Quran which I have selected for this purpose, and which actually give a very summarized view of how the Quran treats this all important topic. So we'll start off with the first of these verses. And the first of these verses, as you can see, is being displayed before you. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu anfiqu min tayyibati ma kasabtum wa mimma akhrajna lakum min al-ard wa la tayammamu al-khabisa minhu tunfiqun wa lastum bi'akhizihi illa an tughmizu fi wa'lamu anna Allaha ghaniyyun hamid. Believers, spend from your pure wealth and from that which we have brought forth out of the earth for you. And don't even think of spending something worthless in the way of God, which you yourselves would not receive except on reduced price. And you should know that God does not need such spending from you, and He is glorious. So the important thing that we have to gauge from this verse is, and in fact, if I can just underline or just underline the word through my cursor, which you can see is now moving on the screen, is the word tayyibat, which means pure wealth. Anfiqu min tayyibat. This is something which the Quran has emphasized here, which means that if you have to spend in charity, then it should not be something which is worthless, something which is discarded, which you might not be using for your own self simply because it's not anything which is usable. And this is especially true when you are giving things in kind, when you are giving things as objects. And this was particularly very apparent in the pre-Islamic Arab society and in the Arab society of the Prophet also, because when they would give their livestock, for example, the cattle that they would own, the camels and the sheep, at times the ones that they would spend in the way of God would be the very ordinary ones, the ones which were discarded, the ones which were, they had just gone through over their age as well. So this is especially true when you're giving objects, you're giving things in kind in the way of the Almighty. So the Almighty has stressed this, that you have to spend amongst your pure wealth. Anfiqu min tayyibat. And the other important thing which is also apparent from this is that not only in kind, but also when we give something in currency, it has to be earned in a legal way, in a halal way. So God would not like us to spend money which has been earned in an illegal way, in a haram way, in a prohibited way. For example, money earned through interest, or maybe money earned through alcohol, sale of alcohol, all these things which are prohibited. In such a case, just to give you an exceptional situation or scenario in which at times people have this money in cash, for example, in a savings account, they are forced upon to accept interest. And this, of course, is something which is not appropriate to spend in the way of God. So instead of spending it in the way of God while expecting that you will be rewarded for that, or for all such instances, what is better is that you just give away the money and without expecting any reward for it. But other than that, if you have control of interest money, it should not come into your account. In the same way, if you are earning wealth through illegal means, the Quran says that the Almighty does not need this wealth to be spent in His way. So the stress is that whatever is to be given for the cause of God has to be something which should be pure, which should be absolutely earned in a way that people cannot cast any aspersions on this earning. So the important thing which we have to also realize is that such is the nature of this directive, that the Quran says that the purity amongst you, or the purification process amongst you, is so extensive that it covers every aspect of human life. That such is the nature of all directives of religion, that they all are meant to purify us. And therefore the word taskiya, which means our own self-purification, whenever it is used in consonance with this fact that whatever we are doing has to be done in a way that cannot in any way be classified as something which is prohibited. So let us first make this note, that whatever wealth we spend for the cause of God has to be pure, and whatever things that we give for the cause of God, the assets, the objects, of course, they could be second-hand, they could be used, but they should not be worthless things, because this is not something that we would ourselves accept if we are even given at a reduced price, as this Quranic verse says. Now let us move on to the next important Quranic verse, which is mentioned vis-a-vis charity in the Quran. So this is the second verse. Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu la tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal aza. Believers, do not mar your charity by reminders of generosity and by hurting recipients. So the second important thing is that when we spend in charity, at times we portray ourselves as people who have done a favor to other people, and at the same time we make them realize that we have been generous to them. So the Quran says that this is something which is going to render their charity as batil, as baseless. So we must not portray ourselves to be people who have shown generosity to people, especially if something happens and the person that we have been kind to, the person that we have maybe done a favor to, if that person in any way annoys us maybe, or becomes a rival. So the Quran says that this should not be the case, that you start reminding him of your own generosity that you once did to that person. And the Quran says that this is something which is going to render your charity as baseless. So we have to understand that charitability, charity, generosity, all these things, the way they have to be done, they have to follow a certain decorum. And the decorum which is mentioned here especially is the fact that reminders of generosity, they are something which hurt a person's self-respect, a person's ego. So when you are giving someone, he already is in a compromised position. He is already accepting something from you. And hence, it is best if you hide all this and you don't make a show of what you are doing. But in particular, if you're going to remind that person, then that is something which is going to really fare evil or fare against ourselves in the hereafter. And the Almighty would not like it at all. And as the Quran has said, it's just going to render our generosity or our charity to be worthless and in vain. The words used are La tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal aza. So manna in Arabic means to show someone the favor, or accept, tell someone that, well, I've been generous to you in my past life, and therefore you should respect me for that. So this is an important eye-opener, I would say. And I think that this is something that we, at times, without realizing, indulge in, that we keep on expressing what we have done to a person, especially if that person starts hurting us. So let us be very careful in this matter as well. Let us now move on to the third important verse which the Quran has discussed here, as well as far as the issue of charity is concerned. So this is in tubtu sadaqati fa ni'immahi wa in tukhfuha wa tu'tul fuqara fa huwa khairul lakum wa yukaffiru ankum min sayyi'atikum wallahu bima ta'maluna khabir. If you spend openly, then this too is a good thing. But to give to the poor and to give it secretly is better. Through this, God will wipe out your sins, and there is absolutely no doubt that God has knowledge of all your deeds. So the important thing that we have to gauge from this verse of Surah Baqarah is that although charity can be given openly and can be brought into notice of other people as well, but the Quran says that if you spend it without letting other people know. So the words are وَتُؤْتُهَا الْفُقَرَاءَ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَإِن تُخْفُوهَا وَتُؤْتُهَا الْفُقَرَاءَ, that if you give it secretly to the deserving, then that is better for you. And how is it better for you? The very next part of the verse tells us, and that is that through this charity, the Almighty brushes away our sins. He forgives our minor sins. And the important thing here to note is the word sayya. So the word sayya in the Arabic language actually specifies minor sins and not any major sin. So if we are able to do this, then the Almighty says that He is going to forgive our minor sins. Uh, a word here can be, or a case here can be made in favor of the fact that why at all should we expose or display or let other people know that we have been charitable? Because the Quran has said that if you spend openly, then it is okay, but to spend secretly is better. So why is it that the Quran has said that you can spend openly or bring it into the notice of other people? So my understanding of this is that there are instances in which you would like to inspire other people to charity, inspire other people to spending. And this is particularly true when, as a teacher and as a parent, you would like your students and your children to have this habit of spending or develop this habit of spending on the underprivileged. So, in that case, in order to inspire them, in order to motivate them, in order to set an example before them as a parent or as a teacher or as a guide, so yes, if you do it openly, because you see, the purpose here is not to show off. The purpose here is not in any way to make other people realize how you are doing certain things. That is not the intention here at all. The intention here is entirely and entirely one, and that is to teach people and to motivate them to do good deeds. But other than that, if that is not the case, then the Quran says that you should do these charitable deeds and you should spare in charity without bringing it into the notice of other people. So the Quran says, فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. It is better for you. And why is it better? Because we know that once we start showing off or once we start sharing our good deeds or charity with people, ultimately it does affect our soul, and ultimately it makes ourselves earning praise from other people, or it's like this form of self projection also at times, which is certainly not a good thing for our own purification. So that is why the Quran wants us that we should be concentrating. Yes, we should find people who are in need, we should find people who would like this charity from us, but then as much as we can, we should hide that charity, and at times, this is what elevates us spiritually as well. Let us move on to the next Quranic verse, which is the fourth in this regard, vis-a-vis the, the thing that we will study here regarding the Quran. And this, of course, is a Quranic verse that is something that you would also have heard of earlier on as well. So the words of the Quran are وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. This means those who, in spite of being needy, give preference to the needs of others. This is verse 9 of Surah Hashr, the 59th Surah. And in fact, if I can say that this verse actually, which is the fourth in order, it spells out the quintessence or the pinnacle of charity, or the highest peak that one can reach in charity. And that is that we just don't spend what is spare, what is beyond our needs. We spend when we ourselves are in need, and here comes a person who is also equally needy, and we sacrifice our need. We just ignore it, and whatever money we have or whatever thing that we have, we contribute it to the cause of that other person. So this is the highest form of charity, and the Quran says that if believers are able to do this, then this is something which is highly commendable. That a person, of course, is not required to do this. This is not an obligation on him or her in any way. But yes, this is a thing which is going to earn that person tremendous reward, a huge amount of reward, because that person was in need himself or herself. And now he withheld his need or her need and gave it away, gave that money away to other people. And I can say this with reasonable surety as well. And I have heard a lot of my seniors and my teachers telling me this, that of course, we know that we cannot see God, we cannot touch God, but we can experience God. And one of the things that I have heard a lot about is this verse, that if you would like to experience God, then this is one way that you can experience God, and that is you fulfill the needs of other people, and you'll find that God is going to fulfill your own needs. This is something that has been reported by so many people, and I think we all should try it. that when we try to fulfill the needs of others in spite of being in need ourselves, somehow or the other, I've heard fantastic such stories in this regard from very, very reliable people, that how God then helps you and helps you from where you could not have even imagined, and in a manner and in an amount that was beyond your thinking. So if you have to experience God, this is something that is recommended, that you try and give what we need ourselves to people who are maybe equally needy. Let us now move on to the fifth verse, which the Quran has specifically mentioned here. And this fifth verse also is something that is well known to all of us. So basically, these verses on charity, they are a selection from the Quran, and I think almost all of us know all these verses very well. So they are just basically a reminder for all of us. The words are "Allazina yunfiquna fis sarra'i waz those who spend in all circumstances, whether they are in ease or in hardship. As-sarra was zarra. So sarra means ease and zarra means hardship. So this is the Quran speaking to us and telling us that don't wait that for you to grow rich, or maybe think that until I have a certain amount, I'll not spend in charity. No, this is not what God wants. God says that you have to spend whether you are in ease or whether you are in hardship, whether you have the treasures of the world and whether you are without them. So whatever you can have, whatever you have, this is something of a test for you. And the Quran says that if you are in comfort, if you're living in luxury, of course, that is something that is always it always calls for spending in the cause of God. But here, what particularly has been said is that even if you are in discomfort, even if you are in financial constraint, even then, if you are able to somehow spare some money in case people need that money, that is going to be something which is going to be highly rewarded for you. And this has been mentioned in the Quran elsewhere as well, that the quality of a believer is that he does not wait, or she does not wait for himself or herself to get rich or maybe have a certain amount of money. Whatever they are, whatever they have, in whatever form they have, they make it a point that I will give a certain amount of this money away for the cause of God. So remember, as believers, we know that we have to pay a certain amount for the cause of God, and that obligation or that mandatory amount is called zakat. So we're not discussing zakat here because that is an obligation, and that has to be carried out at all cost. We are discussing infaq. Infaq means spending in the cause of God, which is over and above the mandatory amount, and hence here the Quran says that whatever your circumstances are, just don't think that you'll be rich enough at any time in your life and you'll be satisfied and now I have enough to give in the cause of God. This thinking is something that we should revisit. This is not the right approach towards life. We are required to spend for the cause of God according to our own situation, whichever circumstances that we may be facing. Now, let us go on to the sixth verse, which is important to this topic, and this has been mentioned in Surah Al Imran, the 92nd verse. It says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ أَلِيمٌ. You shall never be truly virtuous until you spend in the way of God what you dearly cherish. Reflect on this and remember, whatever you spend, you will definitely be rewarded for it because it is known to God. The important point here is لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. These first few words, which says that you shall never be virtuous until you spend for the cause of God what you dearly cherish. So at times, spending that we do for the cause of God is from the money that or the assets that we have in spare, and we can always, do away with them. But the Quran says that if you would really like to come closer to God, spend something that you really hold very dear to you. Maybe, give it away for the cause of God. And of course, this is mostly true for things that we give for the cause of God, or things that we give in kind. Maybe we have a dress which is very dear to us, maybe a trouser or a shirt, or in the case of ladies, whatever things that they wear, maybe jewelry. Similarly, for men, there are other gadgets that they might have and which other people might need. So at times, giving away something which is very dear to you. So it does happen in our lives that when we go along the sequence of life, there are certain things that become very, very favorite of ours. I mean, you are really fond of those things, and in particular, there could be one thing that you're really fond of, and you would not like to part with that thing. So the Quran says that if you want to become virtuous and truly pious, then consider this, that you are going to part with the most dearest of things that you have and give it to someone who might need it. Of course, it's a need for you as well, but you love it so much. I mean, it's not as much a need for you as much as it might be a luxury item or an item of comfort. But if you really like that thing, so this is going to be your test, whether you like that thing more or you like the cause of God more. So the Almighty wants to train us. He wants us to be to have those feelings for the society, and they can only develop if we have the strongest feelings for God Himself. And these strongest feelings, as this verse says, will only be developed if we part away with things, if we part ways with things that we truly cherish. And as I said, these could be various things. I mean, every person has one or two things which he or she would really keep close to his or her heart. And if that is something that he or she can do away with, spend it for the cause of God in any way, I think this is also worth experiencing, that this is going to elevate ourselves and make ourselves closer to God. Let us now move on to the next Quranic verse in this regard, which is the seventh verse. And this also is a very important area of discussion regarding infaq or charity. So the words are, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قل ما أنفقتم من خير فللوالدين والأقربين واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل وما تفعلوا من خير فإن الله به عليم. They ask you about what they should spend. Tell them, whatever you spend is for your parents and kinsfolk and for the orphan and the destitute and the wayfarer of your society. And rest assured, whatever good you do will never go waste, because God is fully aware of it. The important thing that we have to understand here is that infaq or charity is something which should never be regarded as a fund that you are dispensing with in a manner that you are giving it to people who are underprivileged, in a way that you think that, well, you're doing something as a favor to them, or in that case you are giving money which is merely for the deserving in this case. So the Quran has made this special indication here that charity or infaq, it should begin with your parents if they are in need. So don't think that spending on them is something that you should not do out of your own charity. No, that is not the case. To be charitable, to be generous, to be looking after their needs, the first head which the Quran has specified here is whatever you have, it should be falil walidain, for the parents, and then there's a whole list of people that is mentioned. But the first and foremost are the parents. And this is especially true because we think that parents ourselves are people that we should not spend our charity on. The Quran has dispensed with this concept. It says that whatever you have for charity, if you would like to spend it, then start off by thinking about your parents. Another thing that you might need to note in this verse is that the word khair is used for money or wealth. And this is used elsewhere as well, which means that primarily wealth and assets and riches, whatever we have, they are khair, they are good. Because if you can use them for the cause of God, if you can use them for the society, they are going to earn you God's reward, and therefore they cannot be classified in any way as the case by certain ascetics who think that, well, giving up the pleasures of life and giving up money or not earning enough is the right way for a righteous person. This is not what the Quran says. The Quran says that the wealth or money itself that you may own is a khair, is something which is good. It is something which God has given you as a trust, and therefore, if you're able to spend it for good causes, then it has to be understood that this is not to be regarded as something as evil. So money is not evil at all. The Quran calls it as khair and says that the first head of your spending should be your own parents, which is a very eye-opening statement given by the Quran, given the situation today that we Muslims think that charity is something that you have to spend on people who are far off or who may be not immediately related to us in any way. But contrary to that, the Quran has started off with our parents. So let us now move on to the next Quranic verse, which is the eighth verse, which is discussed regarding charity. Again, this is something also which is very commonly known, but again, I would like to allude to it. It says, للفقراء الذين أحصروا في سبيل الله لا يستطيعون ضربا في الأرض يحسبهم الجاهل أغنياء من التعفف تعرفهم بسيماهم لا يسألون الناس إلحافا وما تنفقوا من خير فإن الله به عليم. This spending is specifically for the poor who are stranded in the cause of God and are not able to travel in the land to earn their livelihood. The ignorant take them for men of wealth on account of their modest behavior. You can recognize them by their faces. They are not annoyingly insistent in begging. Help them and be aware that whatever you spend for this objective will necessarily earn reward for you because it is known to God. The thing which is very appropriately pointed out here by the Quran is that as far as spending for the cause of God is concerned, there is a whole category of people who would not come to you for their needs and who outwardly might look as if they are very well set people. But inwardly, if you have that eye, you'll know that the person is in a spot of bother. As the Quran says, يَحْسَبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَاءَ مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ. Because of their modest behavior, people think that they are rich people. But in fact, they are in certain need, in a certain need that we might not know. So the Quran has said that to recognize such people, you would know that these are people who would not come to you and insist on their needs, or they would not doing it unknowingly, which means that they would rather sleep empty stomach at night, or maybe sacrifice their needs than go and ask for money from people. So in other words, what the Quran is telling us is that there is a whole category of people who are not going to come to you that often for their needs. It is you need to go to them because you know that they are in certain amount of stress or distress. But the thing is that their outward behavior, their outward looks, maybe the way they are dressed, or maybe by the way they speak or conduct themselves, would give you this impression that this person is very well off. But if you are more careful in your vision, you'll realize no, this is not the case. This is just an outward appearance that might be actually blocking the actual reality. So to go to people who are in need, who are white-collar people, who would not insist on begging, but they would rather curtail their own needs, and they would rather, as I said earlier on, they might sleep empty stomach. So it is such people towards which the Quran beckons us. It urges us. You find such people in the society. They are everywhere, and because of this professional beggary that we find in our society, we often think that are just people in this world who come and ask for their needs. Let me tell you, and I think you will also agree with by experience, that there is a larger category of people who are in need, but they would not come to you because of their self-respect and self-honor. And it is the right of such people that we must reach out to them. So this is what the Quran is pointed out here. And it's again, as I said, these are eye-opening verses of charity in the Quran, and which tell us that professional beggary is something, yes, of course, which makes us at times think that they're only, people are only in need when they ask for their needs. No, this is not true. There are many people who are in need, but they would never ask for them. And they are the ones who have that honor and self-respect. And we have to find such people so that they are not left unattended. Now let us move on to the ninth verse, which I have selected for our discussion regarding this topic. This also is something that might be very commonly known, and this is a verse from Surah Bani Israel, the 17th Surah. This is verse 29. It says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. Be neither miserly nor prodigal, for then you should either earn reproach or be reduced to poverty. So this is what the Quran has specially pointed out here, is that we must not be either either too stingy in spending, or we become spendthrifts. We become people who just spend at anything that comes their way. And the Quran says it has to be somewhere in between. So overspending and not spending at all, these are two trends that we see in our society, in our families, amongst our friends, that either people are spendthrifts or they're just going to save money until even they pass away, and they would not even touch it for their own needs. So this is not the right attitude. The Quran says that if you have been given money, God has blessed you with money, you just spend it for all your needs, of course, and for the needs of others also. But don't be overspending. Don't be a spendthrift. Don't start thinking that everything that comes your way has to be bought. So it has to be an attitude of balance in which you are able to save money as well. Because you see, unless you save money, how can you be able to help other people whenever they come their way? So saving for the cause of God, saving for charity itself is a recommended thing. Again, as I said, that the Quran has made it clear that the way we have to conduct our lives, the way we have to go about living our lives, is that we should not indulge in these two extremes and live as humble servants of God in the manner that the verse has just described. Let us now look at the 10th and last verse that has been selected for this topic. And this verse is also something which is generally known to people. And as I said, it's basically a reminder. It says, الذين ينفقون أموالهم بالليل والنهار سرا وعلانية فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. So this is verse 274 of Surah Baqarah. It says, those who spend their wealth in the way of God by day and by night, in private and in public, have their reward with God, and for them there shall be no fear there, nor shall they be sorrowful. The important thing which this verse singles out here is yunfiquna amwalahum bil-layli wan-nahar, who spend by day and night. So this word is this expression doesn't mean that they spend either by the day or by night. It's like saying that they are spending all the time. By night and day is an expression that we use in our own language as well. When we say that he's doing something continuously, we say that he's morning and evening indulging in this. So it doesn't mean that he's only doing this in the morning or in the evening. It basically embraces all the periods of time. So in a very similar way, the Quran has said here, "Allazina yunfiquna amwalahum bil-layli wan-nahar." They do it unremittingly, relentlessly. They are always in search for opportunities to spend for the cause of God. So they don't wait for opportunities to come to them. On the contrary, they find these opportunities. They look for opportunities wherever they can be useful for other people. So this is a very motivating verse of the Quran as well. I would say that don't wait for people to come to you. Don't think that unless a person comes to you, he's needy. No, you have to be on the lookout for such people. And remember, when you spend or when we spend on other people, basically it's something that we are doing for our own selves. And that is why the Quran says that if you are doing this for your own self, then do it as much as possible. Create that opportunity. Look for that opportunity. Find that opportunity. That opportunity is presenting itself to you every now and then, right and left, top and bottom. The only thing is we need to open our eyes. We need to be more connective to our society, and we'll find these opportunities. So it's like saying that a believer should go all out. He should be in a position or in this state of mind that I am going to spend whatever I can whenever I come across. And it's not just whenever I come across, but I'm going to find people, I'm going to find opportunities, I'm going to find institutions that to which I can contribute. And also, I would like to point out here is that, of course, what we have until now studied regarding these 10 verses, they relate to objects, I mean, things that we spend in kind or assets, and as well as the currency or the money that we might be having. But charity is not just limited to cash or kind. Remember, charity, as we know from the Quran also and from various very authentic narratives of the Prophet, is also something that we can show from our behavior. So to smile at people, to be welcoming to people, to be always there for people is, as our hadith say, they are sadaqah. It's themselves acts of charity. So charity is not just something which relates to spending. It also relates to our own attitude. To be charitable, that is why the word charitable has become an adjective in itself, that you are a person who are charitable, who is always on the lookout of how to help people. And this helping, as I said, is not just through money. It could be through your time. It could be through your profession. It could be through assisting people in whatever you can in your own way. So look out for these opportunities, find these opportunities, and always think that one of the greatest things that we can always do, even if we are not able ourselves to at times help people, is to ask our friends and relatives. So you see, this is something that at times we shy away from. We shy away from asking other people, but we should not shy away from asking other people for other people. So maybe we should shy away if we have our own need at stake. But when other people need money or assistance or help in any way, we can look up other people, we can dial the phone, we can pick up the phone, we can send a message. So there are other people who might be there for you, your own friends. And lastly, we also must not underestimate the power of prayer, dua, that we can make for that person who might be ill-fated or in stress. So if we ourselves are not in a position to help that person, or many of our friends are not in this position, then remember the greatest power on earth is God Himself. He is in a position to help a person anytime. And this is at times neglected by us. So praying for the well-being of that person is also something that can make that person closer to God and be helped. So these were some of the verses of the Quran that I wanted to bring to your notice as an extension lecture, because the month of Ramadan is also drawing near, and we also know that whatever virtue that we do in the month of Ramadan is multiplied many times. And I think that one of the things that we can do is to concentrate on these charitable acts for the month of Ramadan. We can now program, it's almost 3 weeks from now, or maybe 3.5 weeks, and we can make a plan for our own selves, how we can contribute to the betterment of the society that we live in, how we can spend the time that we have at our own disposal. And of course, Ramadan is a month which will earn us those blessings as well. But at the same time, also realize that it's not just the month of Ramadan, but Ramadan itself is a workshop, and anything which we do as a workshop should continue with us, or should continue to be a part of our lives later on as well. And to be charitable is something that should be part of our personalities. It should be part of our behavior. It should be part of our demeanor. A believer or mu'min, a true believer, is someone who is known for his closeness to God and who is known for his closeness and proximity towards people. So thank you very much for listening to these verses and to some of my submissions. So if you have any questions regarding this topic or anything which might be off topic, you are most welcome to ask them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Bismillah, Tirmizi Ahmed, please go ahead.
Okay. So the concept of taqwa is that we completely believe and surrender ourselves to God, and believe in the fact that He'll look out for us, right? So in that, am I correct in thinking that, or am I wrong?
So the word taqwa actually means to live a life in which you abide by the limits of God. You see, the bounds and limits, we have been prescribed certain bounds and limits that we should not cross. So a muttaqi person, or a person who has this trait of taqwa, is a person who does not cross the bounds and limits of God. So this is the definition that the Quran tells us regarding taqwa.
So a mu'min has taqwa. Is that?
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay. And another question I had was a short question. That was Hajra married to Abraham, or was Sarah married to Abraham? Who was the maid?
Both.
Both
of them are wives of Abraham.
Okay. What confused me was that I was just doing some comparative study on my own, and I realized that even Hinduism mentions Brahma, Saraswati, and Gagar, who sound like Sarah, Hajra, and Abraham. Is Hinduism an offshoot of Judaism in some way 4,000 years ago?
No, actually, I think I've been discussing this elsewhere as well, that it seems that the earliest books or the earliest scripture of Hinduism are the Veds, and they are deeply influenced by monotheism. So you'll not find anything polytheistic in the Veds, which is the first book of historically the first book. But later on, we find other books which they regard to be their holy books. They do have elements, and very strong elements, of polytheism. But as far as the story of Abraham and Hagar are concerned, I don't think that they are reflected precisely, or maybe I may not be fully grasping them or knowing them, but to my understanding and my knowledge, I don't find them to be mentioned in detail in their scriptures. But what I can say is that Hinduism primarily started off as a monotheistic religion. It was something which was deeply monotheistic, and it gradually actually became a polytheistic religion as it is today. As far as historical figures are concerned, yes, there's a whole group of people who find the prediction and arrival of Prophet Muhammad in the scriptures of Hindus, and there are other characters as well. But I think that as far as Abraham and Hagar are concerned, that needs some more research.
Okay, thank you so much.
You, Baran Nashir, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Right.
Sir, my question was about the concept of sadaqah jariyah, as we are being told that, for example, if somebody passes away and you, in their sake, build, like, for example, a water well or something, that they get like the good deeds from that till the day of judgment, basically. Like, they passed away, but they still have, because the sadaqah jariyah. Is this true, or is this like basically what they told
Sadaqah
us?
Jariyah means that someone has done or initiated something in his or her own life, and that continues to give benefit after that person passes away. That is why it is called Sadaqah Jariyah, which means ever accruing reward. So it cannot be transferred. I mean, it's not that if my father passes away and I do a good deed on his behalf, or maybe just as you said, that I maybe build a hospital or dig a well. So that is going to reward me. But if my father had started the construction of a hospital, could not complete it, or maybe he had it in mind and he wanted that it to materialize it, but it never happened, and somehow he had the funds as well. So if he in any way, the person who has passed away, he has to be the initiator of that good deed, which is going to accrue benefit for him after his death as well. It cannot be initiated by the heirs of that person. So whatever good deed a person did in his life, and that deed is still benefiting people after he has passed away, is called Sadaqah Jariyah. But then, as I said, it has to be initiated by that person in his own lifetime.
But then if, for example, I pass away and somebody builds a well in my name, that the person who builds the well gets the good deeds and not me.
Not yet, of course. Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Bismillah Tirmizi Ahmed, please go ahead.
My question, Dr. Saleem, is that the more I delve into the historical books before Islam, the more I come to realize that everything seems to stem from the same concept of one God, and may have it becomes diluted as we move on down the ladder of decades and centuries. Is that a wrong concept? Because the other day I was attending a meeting and there somebody mentioned, the Imam mentioned actually at a dua, we'd gone for somebody's funeral, that Khizr may have been Buddha. Now that really confused me. So are people just saying these random things now because it's fashionable, or is there some historical truth to it that,
Right. So what we can say with reasonable surety from the study of scriptures, from the study of various religions, is that mankind started, and of course the Quran is absolutely clear that the Quran that mankind started with the concept of Tawheed. Monotheism was the concept on which we were nurtured and nourished, and our own human nature was also built upon it. And it was later on, as the Quran says, that people started to differ with one another, and then started to worship other deities, that prophets were sent for this reformation. So yes, I think as the Quran has said, and it has been testified by many other historical, I would say, sources as well, is that mankind started off with this concept of one God. As far as Buddha and Khizr being the same people, same personalities is concerned, I don't think that they can be equated, because Khizr was, as the Quran has portrayed him, is an angel of God, and he was deputed for the instruction of Prophet Moses and for certain other tasks as well. As far as Buddha is concerned, we know that he was a person who lived at a certain period of time. He was the prince of his own Kapilvastu, the place that he was born in, and he has a historical. He was a historical figure. I mean, he was a human figure, but that is not the case with Khidr. So I think that if you study the Quran, it will be quite simple. I mean, it's very easy to gauge this fact that they are two entirely different personalities. So as far as religion is concerned, I would always think, I always try to make myself understand this and also to convey this reality to my viewers as well, is that you see, whenever you classify something as religion, you must find its sanction in the Quran as well. I mean, if the Quran has spoken of it, then the final word on that subject is of the Quran. And a lot of things that we do today are based on hearsay. Whenever a person says that, well, you should do this and you should do that, and something is like this and something is like that, he or she would not even be knowing the origin of what he or she is uttering at that time. It's just reporting
Mm,
certain things that they have heard from their grandmothers, maybe, or from the society at large. So
mm,
to unlearn these concepts, as someone has beautifully said, that the greatest learning is to unlearn the facts that
mm.
you have piled up in your mind and they are not well researched. So you have to put everything to question, everything to scrutiny. You must realize that there are things that are going on in the label of religion and they are going on unchecked and they are mere
Mm.
hearsay. They need the sanction of the Holy Prophet, and of course, that means that they have to be corroborated by the Quran or by his hadith, and that is something which is, I mean, at times totally lacking here.
Okay. Mariam, can I ask another question, or is somebody else asking a question?
Can you wait again for your
Yeah, sure.
turn? Just
Sure,
raise your
sure.
hand again and then we'll
Oh,
come back
sure.
to you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabia Khwaja, please go ahead.
Dr. Shehzad, I wanted to tell you, I think I told you before also, that I pay very heavy taxes on my dividend income, which is about 4 times my annual zakat. So now the money in my savings account in the bank, I want to spend it in charity. So
Mhm.
can I ask the bank that they should not cut my zakat, because my zakat is already being paid from what I understand. So can I just take the money and calculate my zakat and just pay this in charity?
If there is a provision with the bank, then yes, but I don't think there is a provision unless you declare yourself to be a Shiite. All other sects, I mean, it's a compulsory thing from the bank that on first of Ramadan they deduct zakat from the amount that you have. So, if I mean, it is something that you have to pay regardless. So, whether you do it yourself or whether your bank does it, it has to be done in either way. So, if you think that you're going to do it yourself, because remember that in according to religion or according to Islamic law, zakat is primarily paid to the state, and the state then uses the money that it receives in zakat to run its own machinery and to look after the needs of other people. But in the absence of this concept, which is, I mean, not prevalent when people think that zakat is just a poor fund, yes, they prefer that they pay the zakat themselves. So it's your prerogative.
So I saw the form, and the bank just said you can. It just says that I want to pay the zakat myself. Do not cut
Okay,
my
that's fine.
zakat.
If you
So
if you
they
if you if that is an
and
option that they're giving you and you would like to spend the amount yourself, then of course that you can do it. Go ahead with that.
so I asked them, do I put Shia? And they said, no, you can put whatever you are. It doesn't matter. You just have to instruct us not to cut your zakat. So I said, okay, I'll put Sunni, but you do not deduct my
Okay,
zakat.
so that is fine.
So that is fine then, because I've already paid it. So why should I let them give it to the government?
Correct.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. We have a chat question that asks, why are Ahl al-Kitab not considered kafir when they have rejected the last prophet after the Hujjah was done on them during Prophet's time? And also in today's age, they're willing to reject the last prophet.
So you see, the Quran has made it amply clear that people who reject prophets of God deliberately, once the message of God has been communicated to those people, they can be called kafir, and that is what the Quran did with the kafirs or the non-believers of the times of Prophet Muhammad, because he had communicated the truth to them from God, and the people who were denying him, the people of the book who were denying him, were doing them were guilty of this denial in a deliberate way. But once the prophet has passed away, we don't have any means to communicate the truth the way prophets of God do. And we also can be never informed whether a person is denying deliberately, intentionally, or not. So, therefore, this is something that the Quran has also never done. It has only regarded those people as kafirs who either admitted themselves that they are denying God or denying the last prophet, or who became non-Muslims or disbelievers or kafirs once the truth had been unveiled to them by a prophet of God. So to declare someone as a kafir is a prerogative of God only. He did this in the times of his messengers. He'll do it again in the hereafter. But in the time in the post-prophetic era, when there is no messenger, we don't have any right to call anyone as kafir.
Baran, sure, please go ahead. Ahmed,
Yeah, my question was about the concept of like letting people know about if you have done something about charity. If you let people know, but it's not your intention to show off or like to boast about it or to remind people, but you let them know for like some other reason, for I don't know, just a random reason. Does your reward get reduced from God?
I mean, as I said, you have to have some valid reason. Why would you like your charity to be known to people? Because the Quran says that the best benefit that you can draw from charity is to keep it between yourself and God. That is the best benefit. So you need to have some other reason in which you are going to let other people know or tell other people. And as I said, one of the reasons is that you'd like to motivate or educate other people. But other than that, if there is no valid reason, then it's ultimately going to be a display or show of your own generosity.
So if you have maybe done it in the past and you kind of regret it afterwards, it's sort of
Yes.
too late because somebody
I mean,
already told
no,
someone.
I mean, you see, anything which is done in the past and done as a mistake or an inadvertent mistake, hopefully God will forgive it. So one becomes accountable for things according to one's own knowledge. So once it has come into your knowledge, now you should, behave the way the Quran has asked us to do so.
Okay, and those things in the past, would God then forgive and still
I
give
mean,
the full
that they will
reward,
be,
or
they will be dealt with God according to their own merit. And if you ask for God's forgiveness, that well, at that time I was not fully aware, or maybe I was doing something that I shouldn't have done. It was unbecoming. Hopefully, God will consider our request.
okay, thank you very much.
thank you, Dr. Saleem. We have another question in the chat that asks, can my charity deeds be considered as sadaqah jariyah for my parents since they invested in bringing me up?
Of course. So whatever good that you do, and in that good or that righteous deed, your parents had a role. For example, they trained you, they educated you, they informed you, and as a result of their instruction and their mentoring, you are doing that deed once they even after they've passed away. So every good deed that you do as a result is going to also add into their own account.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Bismillah Tirmidhi Ahmed, please go ahead, and that'll be our last question of the day.
Okay, Dr. Saleem. So Islam seems to be the only undiluted religion from what we understand. Christianity completely changed because Jesus' teachings are not how Christians practice their religion today, it seems. Why is it that uh, Muslims who are Muslims today or people living in Saudi Arabia at the time of the Prophet, they were completely not given any scripture for almost 2000 years, and only Jews were the people who were the Prophet's ancestors. Were they practicing Islam as it had been brought down by Abraham? They were, or were we just chosen because the Israelites went off track? Is it just a coincidence, or that's how it was meant to be? Do we
So you
have
see,
anything on that?
we know that Abraham himself had a scripture. Sahifa Ibrahim is mentioned in the Quran. So he left that scripture both for both branches of his progeny, and amongst the Ishmaelites, the teachings of Abraham they survive. We know the word Millat Ibrahim is a term which the Quran uses, and the Arabs were very much aware of these concepts. And yes, some deviation had resulted in, or had, it had entered in their own practices. But by and large, they knew these practices, and also remember that almost 80% of religious rituals or religious things, I would say pre-religious rituals, they are already found in our own selves as innate guidance. For example, universal truths are things which we carry with our own selves the time that we are born. We don't need any external instruction. It is only certain worship rituals that we require to be instructed in so that we can connect to God. And this is what Abraham had already done. So he had built the Kaaba. So the Hajj that we do today was actually initiated by him. And right after him, it was, it has been continued in this fashion ever since. Similarly, the prayer, we know the way he had instructed even before Abraham. The prayer is something which started off with Adam. And similarly, the institution of zakat and animal sacrifice, all these were already in place through oral tradition. It is just that this oral tradition had become a little damped and diluted, because of which a final prophet was needed. Otherwise, basic instruction, as I said, was found innately in their nature, and externally also the religion of Abraham and the Sahifa of Abraham had started off their life actually 2000 years ago. But yes, in this case, the Israelites who were given this responsibility first, they flouted their responsibility. They behaved irresponsibly, and therefore they were stripped of this position. But during this time, parallel to this time, if you look at those 2000 years, you'll find that the Ishmaelites were well grounded in the Abrahamic tradition because of the Saifa Ibrahim and because of the practices of Abraham, which had become part of their daily rituals.
So why is it that they only consider themselves the chosen people? It seems that we are the chosen people too then.
Actually, the word chosen has a very nuanced connotation. It means that they are chosen to deliver the message of God. They are not chosen people of God as in that they are favored people of God. It means that they are chosen for a certain task. Even the Jews know this. So if you look at their rabbis or you talk to them, this is a loosely understood concept that when people say that we are chosen, or when they say we are chosen, that people think that, well, they are elevating themselves. No, they also know, and the Quran also specifies this, that this choice is not, or this selection basically is not a selection of a superior race. It's just a selection for a certain task that they were given. So the Banu Abraham, the progeny of Abraham, actually is under question. That they were given a certain task to deliver the message of truth to other people, and the only thing is that the progeny of Isaac was selected first. They are the Jews, and they call themselves selected or chosen as a result. They are chosen for this task, and once they did not come up to the standards of this task, they were deposed from this position, and now the chosen people for this task are the Ishmaelites. So the choice is not of any veneration; it's basically for a task.
Okay, and do we know why has Allah mentioned in the Quran why He chose Ishaq before He chose Ismail, even though Ismail was older?
Well, that's a very interesting question, but to my knowledge, I don't think the Quran has answered it anywhere. And it does seem that the Almighty wanted the last prophet to come from the progeny of Ishmael, and this could have only happened if the other part of the lineage of the or the dynasty would have been from the progeny of Isaac, because in them prophets were going to come one after the other. We know from Prophet Moses to Jesus, it was like every new prophet would come, and the prophet who would be going away, he would baptize the newer prophet, and it was like, as the Quran has said, would be one after the other, and so therefore this was one way of the Almighty, that the one branch had to be chosen, and for that purpose, I think the Israelites were chosen because of the fact that these prophets of God had to come one after the other, and then the last prophet was to come not from amongst them, but from the other side. So had the situation been reversed, the prophet might have come from the other side. So I think basically it's to balance this that this has happened. But again, as I said, it's more conjecture on my part. We don't have any definite thing from the Quran.
Okay, and then just referring to your earlier lectures, this is from a while back, that Allah is all knowing. So the assumption on our part has to be that Allah already knew that they would go astray, or because humans make choices themselves, the choices were left to humans, but Allah already knew that how they would behave.
Yeah. So you see, the knowledge of God is that such and such a person will go astray out of his own sweet will and choice. So it's not that God is driving that choice or making that choice for them. He knows what the choice they will make. He knows the choice, but the choice will be made by themselves independently of God's knowledge.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem, for another amazing session. And inshallah, see you tomorrow in Some Misconceptions about Islam, which will be another sub-series that we're doing for just this weekend. So, inshallah, see you then. And thanks to all the participants for asking great questions. And thank you, Dr. Saleem, for clarifying a lot of our misconceptions and a lot of our questions that arise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you.